2015 was an interesting year. Mad Max Fury Road came out, Max Verstappen became the youngest F1 driver, Seattle chose to run the ball.
Pass is intercepted at the...
Why would you do that?
Also, a new Star Wars film came out.
Star Wars.
After the release of Revenge of the Sith in 2005 and another Indiana Jones movie with Shia LaBeouf in 2008 that ended up being the last one ever, I promise, George Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney for $4.5 billion doubloons, and in the blink of an eye, the mouse executed Order 66. Clone Wars, gone. Boba Fett 1313 game I really wanted to play when I was a kid, gone. Legends where Chewbacca gets crushed by a moon, sorry dorks, gone. The ash and burn was all to prepare the generation for a new Star Wars era. Star Wars has had 3 really big eras with all different perceptions during their releases, but what they all had in common was the void of time from trilogy to trilogy. After Return of the Jedi, it took 16 years to get to The Phantom Menace, and from Revenge of the Sith, it took 10 years to get The Force Awakens. But since the prequels were so drastically different from the originals, it took 26 years to revisit the original trilogy, which is why Rogue One and Battlefront were such a big deal a decade ago. Star Wars hype culture was really loud and special, but lately I've become so numb to Star Wars that it has to take a spy thriller show with top-tier writing and grounded genocide to get me to feel something. Unless you like Lizzo and Boba Fett getting whacked with sticks and spitting at babies, then you're having a blast. What can I say? Star Wars was so hype-inducing that the sound of X-Wings or a lightsaber turning on could get 30-year-olds to stand up and clap on a Thursday because it was Star Wars. Breathing weird isn't a sign of heart failure, it's Darth Vader. Who shot first that makes Harrison Ford mad in interviews?
Did you shoot Greedo first, or did Greedo shoot you first?
I don't care.
And the music. And as we could see right here, that John Williams music is hitting in my noise-canceling, activated, everyday use Raycon earbuds. Being able to do my daily task while tuning out the background noise makes everything that much better. And I don't have to worry about them dying on me due to its 32-hour battery life. In these burning double sun summer days, it's hard to find good earbuds at a good accessible price point. And Raycon makes that possible by bringing back their fan favorite everyday earbuds classic model. That's right, they're back in black and other colors now with active noise cancellation that come in a variety of different colors, and with unique different colors is also unique protective casing. With this stylish earbud is also convenience, getting 90 minutes of battery in a 10-minute charge. Go to buyraycon.com/Doktor Skipper to get 20% off site-wide. And thank you to Raycon for sponsoring the video. Star Wars was a feeling, and in 2015 Star Wars was very different. The prequels was hissed with malice, followed up by annoyance. Aside from Revenge of the Sith, but even then it wasn't seen as a gift from God like it is now for every boy that was born in 2002 that aura farms and hits the gym. The prequels were really disliked. Pod racing and Jar Jar Binks pissed people off. With hindsight, it's less cynical and stupid as they fly now or somehow Palpatine returned, but there was a lot disliked about the prequel movies. The Clone Wars, though, is one of the greatest things about Star Wars. It spawned so much shit outside of just the films, and one of them was Battlefront. Yes, it took this long to talk about Battlefront. Battlefront, like Star Wars, also had 2 eras with similar origins and big time gaps. Battlefront 2004 was made by Pandemic Studios, who made a bunch of other Star Wars games previously and were inspired by Battlefield 1942, and wanted to make the most immersive all-out action Star Wars game, capitalizing on the Clone Wars era and original trilogy conflicts. But it was at a weird time because the Clone Wars was only at the end of the second film with the Battle of Geonosis, so the main content was from the OG trilogy and some of the prequels. But then a year later with Battlefront 2, the Clone Wars was the main highlight. In 2005, during all the Revenge of the Sith buzz, Battlefront 2 was very beloved for anyone who was a kid or teenager during the prequel craze that had an original Xbox or PS2. Battlefront 2 was an awesome package. Space battles you could get out of your ship when boarding other ships to have ground battles. Then on the 360 generation, a Battlefront 3 pretty much got fully made by Free Radical Studios, but greed from Lucasfilm and a flop game called Haze meant this game was never going to get released, and Battlefront died. But with the Disney acquisition, EA got full access to the licensing of Star Wars games. 10 years later, this makes complete sense. Both companies were napping at the wheel. Then on June 9th, 2014, it was revealed that Battlefront was being made by DICE, the same studio that made Battlefield, coming off the success of Battlefield 3, getting ready to make Battlefield 4, which also meant it was going to be beautiful and ahead of its time since it was on the Frostbite engine. Battlefront 2015 is a complex maze of nostalgia that's stuck at a 4-way stop. It's made for the nostalgia of Star Wars and for the nostalgia of Battlefront, and now this video is rooted in my nostalgia of it. On this channel, I talked about the game before, 5 years ago when I first started, and it was because I have a deep relationship with this game. It's very important to me and carries a lot of memories, and looking back at it has filled me with a lot of complex emotions that are hard to process. So as I start to go back 10 years and revisit the games that made my childhood, I feel this is a great place to start and address that nostalgia isn't always your friend. When the game got announced, there were already red flags. The game was going to take place during the original trilogy, so no prequels and no sequels. At the time, prequel hate was still strong, and this was the first time the original trilogy got to be seen as HD and glossy, aside from a shitty special edition where Han Solo breaks his neck. The Force Awakens was cashing in on the same thing. A modern New Hope with a new Darth Vader, new Stormtroopers, X-Wings, and TIE Fighters. Take in mind, we didn't know Rey was a Jedi, or that Kylo was Han Solo's son or anything. This new era of Star Wars was still fresh. The game was a huge deal since it was released a month before The Force Awakens and was in spirit Battlefront 3, and it was no coincidence that it released so close. The game's marketing represents the actual game, engulfed in the immersiveness of Star Wars' scenery and aesthetic, so much that it forgot to be a video game first in many ways. It made backwards progress from its predecessor in 2005. Content was limited to just one big game mode, that being Walker Assault. Iconic content that should have been in the base game at launch was locked behind a paywall season pass that eventually killed the player base by splitting it. Flight was made moronic and not fun. The heroes played like shit and were simple even though they were strong as hell. There was no longer seamless space battles ingrained with combat either. To be a hero or in a vehicle came down to RNG, having to find tokens instead of having a hangar bay. Overall, it was a greedy rush mess to fit the timeline of The Force Awakens to cash in on that hype before Christmas. And it was made with love. Still. I love Battlefront so much because it was really what sparked my love for Star Wars. It wasn't a video game to me, but more of an experience. Being Boba Fett, Han, Luke, or Vader was a power fantasy. Take in mind, I was like 13 years old in 2015, and behind the corporate cynicism in its conception was still a labor of love that didn't get to flourish at its highest potential, and it now makes me feel very alone. I wrote down a bunch of names for this 2015 series, games that I'm going to cover, and out of all of them, only 2 have been really forgotten. All the others are still discussed or relevant in gaming culture in some way, but the only 2 that were really notable to me as a kid that were abandoned from that year is Halo 5 Guardians and Battlefront 2015. The thing that makes Battlefront so interesting though is that compared to a game like Halo 5, Battlefront 2015 has no reason to be played now and will only be forgotten to time. Earlier I said I made a video about this game 5 years ago. I did the same thing with Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 came out in 2017, had its controversial hated launch, made a comeback at snail's pace after years, was in the biggest spot ever, then got unplugged for a flop Battlefield game that EA heavily regrets now. And it somehow got a second comeback in relevance and player base because of a TikTok trend that had people begging for a Battlefront 3 that will most likely never get made. So who cares that this game turned 10 years old? Battlefront 2 is a more polished video game with more to it and has always had more attention and focus, and was also recently on the ropes itself and is now still fighting to exist again. I played Battlefront 2 when I was in the trenches. I played it when I got unplugged after the Scarif update.
Battlefront 2 has issues with the population and other game modes besides Supremacy and HVV.
It's so old now that a lot of people's nostalgia may lie with that game sometimes more. I can't decide which one was really my kid game between the 2. Battlefront 2's Heroes vs. Villain mode has complexity with each of its characters, or in 2015 a lightsaber fight was awkward and stiff where it just came down to who swung first, making the other lock in a unsatisfying animation. And blaster characters are also just simple with boring abilities. I played the shit out of Boba Fett in 2015. I even have it on video where I thought I was popping off in Heroes vs. Villains. But Battlefront 2's Han Solo and Boba Fett are real guys I could customize and have skill with rather than this one-dimensional horror farm. Its space combat was also more advanced where you could have dogfights instead of pre-made spin buttons to avoid whoever locked on first. It's not as advanced like Squadron, but you could still actually have cinematic dogfights in its own mode and other modes. In the 3 eras, there's multiple unique maps compared to Battlefront 2015's 4 base locations before DLC. 3 era Supremacy as well. All the DLC was also free from its heroes to maps. In 2015, you had to pay for 9 num before Chewbacca and Lando, and since it was one era, a bunch of bounty hunters were added instead of anything else more interesting. The DLC was gas though, I'm going to talk about it later, but it should have been in the base game, not behind a paywall. It's a repeat of the same situation that happened originally with Battlefront. When you go back to its classics, you play Battlefront 2, because what reason is there to play Battlefront 1 if it's limited and dead? With everything I just said, something I noticed quick about Battlefront 2015 was still its charm. Aside from the deadlines and intention of profits from evil overlords, Visceral and DICE really wanted to make something that felt warm and comfortable. They wanted to make something that just really felt like Star Wars. From its UI, sound effects, and amazing graphics that today are gorgeous to look at. You could see a whole video on the technology they used to make the jaw-dropping landscapes. There's a lot of little things that Battlefront 2015 did that I even like more than Battlefront 2. After buying it on Steam, I was met with a wave of nostalgia from just its title screen alone. It got me excited to play and revisit that kid who was discovering how to make videos for the first time, that would get home from middle school after getting the game for Christmas and just wanted to play all day. Some of my earliest YouTube videos was about Battlefront.
Buy it if you want, don't buy it. Honestly, it's fun, but for the standard price it is for $15 US, I don't think it's that worth it.
But quickly, I was then hit with the reality that this isn't Battlefront 2, and nobody was home. I waited and waited and waited. I got teased a few times when people would join thinking I was gonna get a game, but then they would see it's a lost cause and they would just leave the lobby. And after realizing nobody was gonna be playing Walker Assault, I went to the 12-player game modes and got a game. It was with Danny Hardcore, Saber, and Grasping Sparrow. When the match started, the first thing I noticed was that I was holding Han Solo's DL-44, an iconic blaster that I really like. In Battlefront 2, I like the classes, but only certain guns are limited to the class you're playing. In Battlefront 2015, you're a blank slate that can be customized however you want. This brought in what I like to call the Titanfall 2 effect, where an ability is so good that everything else is inferior, just like how the grapple hook was in Titanfall 2 for those who know ball. In this game, that was the jetpack. The jetpack was your largest piece of mobility, so everybody was just jumping around with whatever loadout they made. Maybe they jumped around with the pulse cannon or the cycler rifle. No matter what though, you'd be bouncing around with Boba Fett's EE-3, Han Solo's DL-44, the blaster from Andor that I only use because it's the blaster from Andor now. I had no idea about it before. The Jawa shotgun, Greedo's blaster that I talked about when I was 12 and knew way more about it then.
DT-12 is a non-higher damage, accurate, slow rating fire blaster.
To show I know ball, I remember the EE-4 and Rebel V10 and how broken they were because people would use modded controllers for it since it worked off a trigger finger. In Battlefront 2 though, to use single-handed blasters you have to be an officer. You can't use one-handed blasters on like assault or specialist or heavies. The guns are just limited to whatever class you're playing. In Battlefront 2015 there's also cool emotes and costumes and cards to use like the shield that wasn't annoying at all. The game just felt more personal. You don't get the same fix in Battlefront 2 because it's apples to oranges. I love playing as a jet trooper and Republic Commando, Death Trooper, Heavy Trooper, but being able to hold Han Solo's DL-44, it was role-playing to an extent. When I couldn't find the fucking rare-ass Boba Fett token, I was able to jump around and use the EE-3. Back to the game though, I was walking around, 2 people disconnected, and eventually it was just me and Danny Hardcore. I couldn't find him, so I began typing to see if he was still playing this game. I also wanted to know why he was even playing this game 10 years later, when Battlefront 2 is just so much more popular. Danny didn't reply. I kept trying to look for him, going in circles, getting distracted by the beautiful immersive scenery that had X-Wings and the Millennium Falcon, but I just couldn't find him. I asked if he was here. No answer. Then Danny left. Walking around was the loneliest I've ever felt in a video game, seeing the ghost of my childhood all to myself while getting nostalgic again. See, like a Minecraft world, it was meant to always be single player. You could invite people back and experience it together. It's not going to be the same, but it still exists. But I couldn't shake off that this game was a graveyard. There's no noise, no jump packs, or the awkward crouch spin that didn't work a lot. I was never going to get a game on PC, so I dusted off my Jurassic Park PS5, found my old PS4 copy of Battlefront, and put the disc in, and was hoping to find games there. It was a Wednesday afternoon and I was optimistic to get a game. Silence. I gave up and tried again on Thursday. Sheriff Woody joined and I waited and waited and waited to just see people joining and leaving. I kept trying and trying, then on a Saturday afternoon, I finally got a match. Oh my God! Oh yeah! I took in all the emotions, seeing the customization, the cards, and the guns. Then my boots were on the ground of Tatooine, and this happened. Hero token! Fine. Horrible voice acting aside, the aura alone from the intros and hearing the character's music after getting a rare token is just icing on the cake to how beautiful that power trip is, and why this game blew my stupid middle school brain away. Within the span of 4 days, I played 4 sessions after hours of waiting each time, to play on every map, and for the DLCs, I could never get a lobby. I was already pulling teeth to get a single match in 40-player modes, and you can't play the DLCs in offline either. Those are gone. It is what it is. Playing Walker Assault again made me kind of hate Walker Assault when it's not on Hoth, and I found it very boring boring everywhere else. Walker Assault was just a default way to progress these amazing maps, and the maps are so good I didn't really care about the repetition of the same game mode. I love the maps in this game so much that it makes playing the same maps on Battlefront 2 really unbearable, not gonna lie. It's always gonna be cool to play on Hoth and Endor, but it always felt wrong in Battlefront 2. The video gamey UI and video gamey movement made it a fun video game, like of course. I went beast mode in this gameplay I'm showing you as Darth Vader and was having a blast, but it was a different kind of fun compared to Battlefront 2015. Battlefront 2015 isn't fun because it was fun to play, but more just fun to experience. Have you ever played a game like Hell Let Loose or Squad, where it's just war LARP, where you don't need to be popping off, but you get thrilled just by having shit hit the fan? Like Operation Metro in Battlefield 3 or Operation Locker in Battlefield 4. It wasn't wall running and drop shotting action, it's a cool scenery. That's Battlefront 2015. Endor and Hoth and Battlefront 2 are condensed and fast paced, structured into a bunch of mini arcade fighting acts, and it leads to a lot of action, but not a lot of immersive tension. Hoth in Battlefront 1 is huge. Vast trenches and open chaos combat, the pace is more drawn out. It's trying to live out what's on the cover of the game. Even the DLCs in Battlefront 2015 were so immersive. The Death Star game mode where you start as an X-Wing, board and escort R2-D2, and you finish with the trench run. Scarif starts with the space battle, then getting on the planet and doing the fight. It's just cinematic. Nostalgia was just different with this game. Replaying it now, I see the faults of the game, and I still like Battlefront 2 more, but the game's representation and simplicity is what made it so memorable to me. It really was a simple game during a really simple time of my life. And while simple isn't always better, it's less complicated. I've changed, gaming has changed, Star Wars has changed. Overall, Battlefront feels like a snapshot, something stuck in place that's warm and comfy. It's outdated, it's dead, and it's impossible to shake off nostalgia from stuff you grew up with, and I wanted to start the series off with this game first, because I'm ready to let it go. It's okay to move on and let the memory just be that. It was a good time, and I'm happy I got to experience it again. Thank you for watching this video, and the next game will be...
Let's do this! You black son of a bitch!